Well, folks, we're here in Mercedes, Texas, home of Rios of Mercedes Bootmaker. With us today on the show is Trainer Evans. Trainer, thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for inviting us down to Mercedes, Texas, and your boot company. Tell me a little bit about the history of Rios of Mercedes.
Well, we're a small company. We've been here a long time. The Rios family started this business, Paul, back in the mid-1800s. Moved up here to the Rio Grande Valley at the turn of the last century, around 1902, and have been here ever since. We bought the company from them in the late 60s and have had it ever since. It's one of the last truly handmade boot companies. We're the largest employer in Mercedes, Texas, which tells you how small Mercedes, Texas is. And we're thrilled that you've come down here. And I want to welcome you on behalf of our town and on behalf of our bootmakers.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, we just want to tell the story of how much American-made product is in our industry. And with companies like yours here, you know, we get to tell everybody at home all across the United States that there still are jobs here in the U.S. It may be a trade, you know, boot making is an art, is it not?
It is. It is.
You know, and
it's almost a lost art.
It's almost a lost art. You're exactly right. And I think, you know, what sets Rios apart is your whole marketing campaign has been built around a fit. The fit of the life, or fit of your life.
Yes, sir.
Well, hey, what more can you ask for? Let's go on a journey into the factory for the fit of your life here at Rios of Mercedes. Well, folks, we're here on the floor in the Rios of Mercedes boot plant, and it's awfully quiet in here, Trainer. Why is it so quiet in here?
It's supposed to be, Paul. We don't have machines. When we tell you it's a handmade product, it truly is a handmade product. You may hear some hammers clanking and some people talking, but that's about it.
That is about it, because right here, that's about all I can hear is the hammers. Now, when we're talking about the fit of a Rios Mercedes boot, I know we were talking earlier, and there's probably, I'm sure there's a lot of different points of what makes a Rios fit like it does and fit like no other boot in our industry. But are there certain steps that actually that actually you can show us that what makes the fit of Rios?
I can, and I'll tell you ahead of time, I'm going to show you things that go into our boots that the customer can't see when he buys the boots. He won't know, he'll only know how well that boot fits. And then about 6 months, a year later, he'll look at that boot and say, gee, that's held up well, and gee, it still looks good on my foot. The reason is behind the things I'm going to show you. We'll start back in the cutting room. I'll show you a calf skin. I'll show you how we cut our leather out so that it stretches with the ball of the foot and through the top. Just about everything that I'm going to show you this morning has to do with how our boot fits and feels good.
Well, great. Let's go back to the cutting room.
All right.
Well, Trainer, we're back here in the leather cutting room, and you were telling me that it all depends on how you cut the leather is actually part of the fit in the boot. Is that correct?
It is, and it's the product you start with. For starters, this is a calf skin. This is truly a calf skin. That's the full size of the animal. Here at Rios Mercedes, this is what we use for our top shafts and some of our vamps. You take an old steer, when you take the hide off the steer, it's that thick, so you've got to skive it down to this thick so that you can work it. Well, you've taken a bunch of the structural integrity out of the leather. With a calf skin, this is all the thicker it is when it comes off the animal. Now here's his head, and here's his tail, and if you'll think about a cow, when you can't stretch her from her tail to her ears, but in good times and bad, she'll stretch around the belly. Now, all you people, country people, know that. But what we do when we cut the leather out is we'll cut the vamps out sideways, we'll cut the tops out sideways, so when you put the boot on, it'll stretch a little bit in the ball of the foot and just give you that little bit of extra comfort. The same holds true of the tops. When you cut the tops out, you want them stretched side to side, so your foot goes in, pops in, and then the elasticity of the leather comes back and holds the foot in place.
So what you're saying is you kind of cut it differently for the shaft from the foot. I mean, there's two different cuts, correct?
There's two different cuts, and the other thing is, by doing this, as I was telling you earlier, we wind up with a lot of scrap because of the way we cut the leather. You could get a whole lot more yield, probably another foot and a half of leather to yield, and that's quite a lot of money at the price we pay for fine leather. But you wouldn't have that fit, and after you've worn the boot for a while, it wouldn't look the same. It looked like an unmade bed. You've all had footwear that just after about 3 or 4 months you go, why did I buy that? It doesn't look right. That's the reason why.
Definitely. Wow. Okay. I know. You know, I've been in boots for quite some time. Definitely not as long as you, but I've never really had anybody explain that to me of why you would cut the leather. And evidently, I mean, there's not a lot of manufacturers that are going to spend the time or lose the yield, as you were saying, in the leather, because they want to utilize every bit that they can, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, Ray Moscoto's been with us for 25 years. He's got a piece of ostrich hide here. He's going to show you a little bit quickly about how he cuts the vamp. If you look at an ostrich, you can see a lot of it's smooth, and then this part is the quill. This is the valuable part here. So you can't cut out a pair here and a pair here. He's got to make it match. He'll cut a pair here, a pair here, and a pair like that. So if you got a little hole right here, guess what? You just lost a pair. You know? Okay.
So when you're trying to cut for the quills of the ostrich, I mean, you only get so many out of one sheet of leather, right?
You can get more, but they won't match. One of the things you'll notice about our boots, when you pull them off the shelf, the exotic leathers match each other. This is a master at doing that.
I got you. 25 years, huh, Ray?
There you go.
Wow.
And so this will show you the pair, and then he'll mark them with a crayon on the backside, and up there when they're lasting, they're always checking to make sure they've got pairs. And that's how you do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ray, very much.
Great. Well, what's the next step, trainer?
Well, the next step is the pasting and the stitching. We'll go through that pretty quickly.
Okay.
There's a part in the pasting that you have to watch out for that'll help you on your fit. We'll go from there to stitching and then run on up to
All right.
fitting.
Well, let's move, guys.
Just a little bit of finished trim. What you try to do when you're making any kind of footwear is you try not to have any raw edges.
Right.
You don't want to have raw edges showing. Well, what a great many people do when they put their piping in, they run it down. They'll just make the turn here, and they'll leave a knot right in the front of it. But you can see how well that fits together right there. And it's because Tony is, when he reaches there, he skives it on the bias, then he picks it up on the other side, and lays it back in there. They've got wonderful hands.
It looks like we're stitching tops here. Is that all that's doing?
Well, and here I introduced you to the factory by telling you we didn't have machinery. Well, we got a machine here, and the reason we do, this is one of the few machines I've ever seen that does a better job than a man does. When I got in this business, the first thing I was a fancy stitch contractor. We had a little old plant, had about 30 employees. Well, Adon here is doing the work of those 30 employees. This is our third generation of these computer stitchers, and they literally do a better job than a man does.
Really?
One of the few things that does a better job. This happened in the late 70s. Sam Lucchese is the one that told me about it. I was doing fancy stitching for Sam Lucchese and for No Kona Boot and for Rios Mercedes. And our little stitching plant got to be profitable enough, we actually were able to buy Rios Mercedes with the proceeds from our little fancy stitch plant. When we got this machine going, it put those men out of work. Well, then I found a job and I started making shoes for Nike Shoe Company. It used to be called Blue Ribbon Sports. Then after that, we made them for Nunn Bush, Stacey Adams.
Wow.
Made them for Allen Edmonds. And so those men turned into about 200 men, and it was a whole different plant. This machine, instead of taking people's jobs, actually put more people to work. So it worked out in its own way.
Well, trainer, what do we got going on here?
Domingo Reese here has been with us a long time. That little fancy stitching plant I told you about, he started out there when he was just a kid, and now he's as old as I am. He stitches the vamps to the shaft, and then he's stitching the counters to the shaft. One of the things I wanted to show you, we were talking about fit. You can see the back of the leather, the back of the boot, the inside of it, and you'll notice when you put boots on, a lot of times your sock hangs up on that little ridge right there. Well, as you slide your foot down, we picked up this leather right here and sewed it over the top of that ridge. So when your foot comes down, it slides right in.
Just makes it easier passage through.
Makes it easier to pass through. We make our own counters. You'll see that's a sole leather counter.
Wow.
And it's not synthetic. It's not going to deform. It's not going to misshape. It's going to hold its shape. And a lot of our people ride performance horses, and they all swear by sole leather counter because their spurs won't misshape it.